Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Magic Market Watch video. This is for the first week of July 2022. We have of course a lot of influence from Double Masters 2022, some big time reprints that have driven the prices down for several cards, and we will of course talk about those in the second half of the video. First half is dedicated to the gainers of the week, but before we get into it, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. We've made some significant progress just over the past year. First one here is kind of cautionary. It's not an actual gainer, but I've noticed that it's been on MTG stocks for the past week and nothing's been done about it. It says the market price is around $2.69, which would make it a gain of over 5,000% from the previous week where it was only listed at 5 cents. Where this is coming from, I have no clue. You can go on TCG Player where all this data is coming from anyway, and you can see even the printing that they're using from Magic Game Night is still only around 5 cents. It always pays to double check, and usually if you look at this chart here and you see it's a straight up vertical line, that's a pretty good indication that something fishy's going on. So just be aware. I know people like to load up on cards when they see there's a massive gain, or they look to sell a bunch of cards. This must have been a glitch in the system or some strange outlier where one person decided they would spend anything more than $2 on this card. It's not the worst card in the world, but it doesn't really justify leaving the bulk category, if you know what I mean. Next card is an actual gainer, and it is Scourge of Valkis. This is last year's printing from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Popular go-to option if you're looking to win with the Commander option Miram, because it's all about ETBs. If you can get a copy of Scourge of Valkis, you're dealing more damage when those other dragons enter the battlefield. One of the strongest dragons you could throw into that Commander deck, period. The gain isn't that significant though. It's just going from sub $1 to over $2, which percentage-wise is a good gain. And of course it has been reprinted. Next one is a bit weird because I have no clue as to why it's going up. Keywords are great. If you're talking about limited, if you're talking about making your own cube, I think Fiendslayer Paladin's a good card. As you can see, it is reclaiming that area that it once reached back at the beginning of 2020. If history is telling us anything, it's that this isn't going to last, especially considering that we are looking at a reprint. If it was reprinted in Archenemy Nicol Bolas, it'll probably get a reprint again. And then we have the card that I recommended people cut from the Crimson Vow Vampire Precon deck. It wasn't that the card itself was bad, it's just that it didn't synergize that well with the deck, even though you had those blood tokens that did let you discard. This was clearly more for a pure madness strategy. It's a good recovery card, but if you're not in it for the madness, then it's really not that good. It's getting over $4 now. This was clearly a bulk rare, so I think that's pretty promising. As we all know, you get some rares that were only featured in one precon deck, which makes them harder to find as the years go on and the product isn't printed anymore. We have another gainer here that has been one of my favorite cards if you're just talking about how to win and mill. It's in the same vein as an Exsanguinate Torment of Hailfire, where all you're doing is just dumping as much as you can into Axon, hoping that it'll mean you win. Each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal excellent cards. Then they put all cards revealed this way into their graveyard. So this was the thing back in Gatecrash. It wasn't just straight up mill. You had other really insane cards like Consuming Aberration. They allowed you to keep milling until your opponent revealed a land, which would of course mean you could mill them even more if they played fewer lands. And what was great about Mind Grind was that it wasn't your typical X-costed mill each player kind of card or mill target player kind of card, where X would be the total number you're milling them. No, X in this case is how many lands they need to reveal until they can stop. So if the average Commander deck is playing 30-something lands, and you're mid to late game, let's just assume you put 20 into X, you could very well win by milling each opponent out. It's not a guaranteed win. I think compared to things like Exsanguinate and Torment of Hailfire, it's a lot less likely to win you the game. But that being said, this is one of the better X-costed mill spells. And for it to get close to $10 for the first time ever since it came out, I think is pretty sweet. There are a lot of people who have treated this like a bulk rare over the years, and the fact that it's finally gotten over that $5 hump, I'm really excited. Now we get to talk about the reprints. We're going to talk about some losers for the week, and I'm not going to be focusing so much on the reprints from Double Masters 2022 with the exception of Imperial Seal, because the original printing for Imperial Seal is still going to be way more expensive than most people can afford, and that's not really where the price is going to be affected. So we see compared to last week, where the market price was right around $350, now it's at $300 and below. You can see they're even listing it lower than that. Now, when reviewing this set, giving my top 10, I said I believe that this would settle under $200. I stand by that, and the set isn't even technically out as of the making of this video, so give it a couple weeks after release and I think it'll be right where I predicted. The Judge promo is going to be way more expensive, the Portal 3 Kingdoms is going to be way more expensive, so I didn't even bother talking about those. They're going to retain their values pretty well because now the go-to printing for Imperial Seal is going to be this. It's going to be a lot easier to find. You have a different border variant, you have an extended art variant, and again, I talked about Imperial Recruiter, which was another reprint from Portal 3 Kingdoms back in Masters 25. That was the chase card of that set, and now it's a pittance by comparison. Now looking at some of the big losers of the week, we have Food Chain, which is a great reprint, and I said a lot of these are going to reclaim their value after 2 to 3 months. I don't think any of these are going to totally collapse, which is a misconception I think people have with reprints. Oh, you want it to go to pennies. It's not going to happen. Food Chain is way too good, sees way too much competitive play, and I think even with a Double Masters reprint, it's still going to be hard to find compared to most cards. So going from in 2021 from around a $70 card to a $50 card is a significant drop, but a lot of things have dropped even further. So I wouldn't really worry about it too much if you have a Mercadian Masks Food Chain. We have Mana Vault, which has been reprinted before in Ultimate Masters. This is the version that we're looking at. Again, we could be looking at the Double Masters data, but there just isn't enough of it to warrant showing you the charts. This chart of the Mana Vault from back in 2019, I think, gives you a better idea of just how much it's dropping. And just in the months since Streets of New Capenna, it's gone from $80, $90 to around $70. And you know it's going to hold its value. It's way too good. It sees a lot of play everywhere. And this artwork really helped it out. I think this being a desirable reprint for that reason, you could expect the Double Masters one to hold its value too. Phyrexian Altar was another big artifact reprint. Again, this is also from Ultimate Masters. It's actually dropped significantly, going from 90 to 50. This has always been a pain to find. I remember back when it was just the one from Invasion. It's still like the only card that's worth playing in that whole set, but over the years everyone wanted one in Commander, so it drove up the price, and that one is still going to hold its value. It's an original print. They seem committed to this newer artwork as well, so that has an impact. Even though it's dropped further, I do believe this is going to go right back up. Another big one of the set, one of the biggest reprints in Double Masters, was Dockside Extortionist. It's another case of a card that only got printed in that one precon deck way back in 2019, and everybody wanted it for the red decks, but they just couldn't find it. So the people who did have them that were looking to sell were going to be asking for a lot more. And going from around 75 to 50 is a pretty big drop. But as you've noticed, while these are big drops, they're still holding significant value here. Again, we're going to have to check on this a week after release, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after release, but I wouldn't expect Dockside Extortionist to be anything below a $30 card. And if it does get to that point, I think it'll come right back to 50, because we can just compare it to something that sees a lot of play in white, like Teferi's Protection, which is the next card we're going to talk about. It has been reprinted a couple times, but it was another card exclusive to one precon deck in the set 2 years prior to Commander 2019. And you can see, looking at the chart, it's gone up, it's gone down, it recovered, and then it went right back down in this time last year in July, and then it recovered, getting back to 40. So looking at Dockside Extortionist, if you were afraid of that price really falling far, again, I wouldn't worry about it. I think Teferi's Protection here is going to drop maybe even below 20, but looking at the behavior here of this chart, it's clear to me that if it drops below 20, that it could easily get back above 20. Maybe won't get back to 40 easily, but it will recover. It's just a matter of will it be able to hold anything above 20. Another big white reprint was Smothering Tithe. Everybody wanted this for their Commander decks, and I don't blame them. It was basically White's Rhystic Study, became ubiquitous. A lot of Commander players just threw it into a deck to fill a spot in one of the 99. The only problem was that it went a long time without a reprint. And yeah, I know 2019 wasn't that long ago, but when it comes to staples in white, just like with Teferi's Protection, it felt like it went a long time without a reprint. And now we're getting under $40 for the first time this year. It's another card that I could totally see drop below 20. I don't believe, however, that it's going to just go right back up like a Teferi's Protection or a Dockside Extortionist. While it is a great card, I don't think it's quite in that category as the other two. You could make a justification for not throwing it into as many decks as the other two. And I think for that reason, it would probably settle around 20 and maybe even below, maybe 15 to 20, and stay around that area. I don't think it's going to be a sub $10 card anytime soon, but I don't think it's going to be a $50 card again. And then we have another one, which this chart is a little bit harder to tell, but the reprint did have an impact, as you can see at the very tail end of the chart. You see another dip and a plateau. A market price of around $30, this card was at one point around $150. So it doesn't really give you the full story here if you were just paying attention to the previous month and not the past year and a half, because then you would really understand how far this card fell. But if you're familiar with dead cat bounces, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe it won't hold whatever it reclaims, but I could totally see this getting back to around $60 to $70, which would probably make it one of the best discounted cards that you can pick up right now. Fundamentally, it's a great one. It's not something that's just inflated because people couldn't find it. It's a competitive card. It's a multi-format card. For the 1 mana that you're spending on it, it's really in a league of its own. So getting it for $30 right now, I know that's too expensive to be considered a steal for a lot of people, but to me, that's a steal. So anyway, that's going to do it for this Magic Market Watch video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.